You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA, and our conversation is on improving food production in Nigeria. And to set the tone for the discussion, here's a background report by Joseph Osen.
Food and Agricultural Organization reports that Nigeria has 70.8 million hectares of agricultural land area and is known for the production of crops like maize, cassava, guinea corn, yam, beans, millet, rice, and many more. Apart from crop production, the country's fishing, livestock, and forestry contributes significantly to food production and gross domestic products (GDP). National Bureau of Statistics (NBS) report shows that agriculture contributed 19.63% to national GDP in the first quarter of 2023. Also, data published by the United States Department of Agriculture indicates Nigeria now ranks 14th and 13th among global meal, rice, and maize producers, respectively, and is currently the highest producer of rice in Africa, ahead of Egypt, and occupies the second spot among maize producers in Africa, trailing South Africa. Nigeria is aiming at achieving food security and food self-sufficiency while becoming a major exporter of agricultural products. Major policies like the Anchor Borrowers Program and closure of the country's border in 2019 were key to increase local production of some of the staple grains. The country made deliberate investment to encourage local food production and discourage import to enrich its foreign reserves. But there are evidence that increased production of some selected crops is not amounting to attaining food security and self-sufficiency. Records has it that Nigeria's food imports totaled $6.9 billion United States dollars in 2022, positioning the nation as one of Africa's foremost food importers, while cost of items in local markets are skyrocketing. One of the steps taken by the present administration to curb hiking prices of food is the donation of 2.15 million bags of fertilizers to farmers across the country through the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. Sustainable food production in Nigeria, to experts, is hinging on pragmatic policies that will ensure grants reach the main producers, producers receive higher prices with better access to input, improved rural market infrastructure, storage and processing facilities, as well as reducing the number of intermediaries and transportation costs. On Good Morning Nigeria, guests will take a look at measures towards improving food production in Nigeria.
Many thanks, Joseph, for the background report. And joining us now to discuss improving food production in Nigeria, it's a pleasure to welcome in the studio Senator Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi, the Honorable Minister of State for Agriculture and Food Security. Many thanks for honoring our invitation.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians, and let me say Ramadan Kareem to our fasting viewers.
All right, welcome. We also have with us here Professor Akeem Abolade Oyerinde, the Dean, Faculty of Agriculture, University of Abuja. He's also a Fellow and National Secretary, Entomological Society of Nigeria. Many thanks for joining us, Prof.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigerians. Happy Ramadan. And I wish all of us a successful Ramadan month.
It's good to see you. They're actually regulars on this program. And joining us via Zoom from Kaduna is Murtala Dabo, Commissioner for Agriculture, Kaduna State. You're welcome to the program.
Yeah, good morning, Nigerians. Thank you for having me on Ramadan Kareem.
All our guests in the studio and to Nigerians, Honorable Minister, will begin with you. And I've not seen you since you became Minister. Congratulations in order. Can you tell us what is going on in the agri sector now?
Well, thank you very much. Yes. Thank you very much for having me. First, let me say that what is happening in the agricultural sector is anchored on the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, whose vision is for Nigeria to be able to feed itself and for Nigeria to also tap the opportunity that God has freely given us in terms of exploiting to the very maximum for the benefit of Nigerians the abundant natural resources that Nigeria has been so blessed with. It is tried for us to begin to say, oh, Nigeria has so hectares of land, this water body. This is what we all know. But over the years, the lip service that have been paid to this sector, the president is bringing a game-changing, policy direction. And what did he do? First, you recall, he declared a state of emergency in July last year on food security. And when we were inaugurated, he changed the name of the ministry from Agriculture and Rural Development to Agriculture and Food Security. Now, there is this saying that if you don't know your purpose, you only continue to work in vain. I think given the importance and significance of food security to our citizens, if you look at the Constitution, it says the welfare and security of the citizens is the primary purpose of government. How do you define welfare when people are hungry? How do you define welfare when people don't have food? So that purpose has now been properly brought to bear in terms of the mandate and direction that has been given to both myself and my brother, distinguished Senator Abubakar Kyari, in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. And upon our coming last year, we went straight to work because we started with the dry season farming. Like we all know, Nigeria's potential for irrigation farming is so huge. We have more than 14 million hectares of land that should have been properly put into irrigation use. And even more, given the preponderance of water bodies that we have. So we started last year with the National Agricultural Growth Scheme, Agro Pocket Project, which is African Development Bank sponsored project. And last year we kickstarted the wheat program across 15 wheat producing states. Our target was 120,000 hectares of land, and as at the end of planting, because right now some have even started harvesting, we have a record of 118,000 hectares, which is a very high score in terms of our target, meeting our target. Now the idea here is for us to ramp up production so that it will help to bring down the food inflation that was being witnessed. Now we are going into the second phase. The second phase is about to kickstart. That is from now till when the rains will begin to come. Areas where they are able to go into farming, we are targeting rice, we are targeting maize, we are targeting cassava. And in the area of what do they call it, rice, we are targeting 150,000 hectares. And then in the area of maize, we are targeting 50,000, and for cassava, 20,000. And in all of this, government is providing massive support to farmers to enable them go into this production, just like we did for the wheat. So this is where we are, and as it is, just like I heard you talking about, donation of 21.5 million, bags of fertilizer from the CBN. This is another, very powerful intervention by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, whose attention was drawn to the provision or to the availability of this facility, and he said, well, send it to Federal Ministry of Agriculture so that they can take it into their production. Now, what does this do? It has now answered one core question we've been asking all along. Timeliness in terms of input. So with this now, it has meant that the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security is getting prepared for the wet season. Because when you don't provide inputs to farmers on a timely basis, then you reduce the capacity of your farmers to go into reproduction.
All right.
So these are the things that we're doing, and many more that we actually are already doing. And we believe ramping up production is the way to go, because when you produce more, you are able to send more products into the market, and that will bring down prices of food.
All right, Honorable Abdullahi, a beautiful response to that question. But Despite these measures, if you like, these interventions by government, Nigerians are still experiencing food insecurity at the moment.
Yeah.
And if you like, some people have termed it as renewed hope hunger and not renewed hope agenda, because...
let's get it straight. When you say...
let me just land on my question.
Okay.
Renewed hope hunger, and in fact that... you know, scarcity of certain goods, and then even when it's available, the prices, you know, beyond the reach of the average Nigerian and all of that. And then, I mean, you get to hear stories every day and what is happening in the country as regards food security. What really are the challenges of food production in the country at the moment?
Okay, let's ask this question. The government came on board in May, which means the rainy season has already started. If you have not prepared for the rainy season, there is no way you can take maximum advantage of the rainy season. I've just given you an example. And so the situation we met is what we're trying to address. And I have no doubt in my mind that the measures we are putting in place is already bringing in some relief. Measures are being put in place in terms of bringing down this price of food that you're talking about. And that is why government has decided to release 42,000 metric tons of assorted food items, which right now has already commenced. Because remember, when you have a strategic food reserve, you are not putting them in bags, you keep them in silos because it's large. If you bag it, the tendency for it to get bad and so on and so on. So the method of keeping food reserve is to put them in silos. Now, the moment you've agreed that you want to send them out, then you have to bag them. That's what has been going on. And based on those things that have already been backed, already they've started distributing these commodities. That itself is going to help to bring down the prices. And there is also effort to throw in more food in terms of like rice, which is already in the offing now. And many state governments also have taken measures. So this is just to solve a crisis. But when you solve a crisis, is that sustainable? No. So what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is saying is that let's put in, while we are tackling this key issue we met on ground, let's put in place measures that will lead us into a sustainable food production system. And that's what exactly the ministry is focusing on. And I will tell you, mechanization, you talked about challenges. One of the challenges of Nigerian farmers is that we have low mechanization. Our mechanization rate is put at 0.02 hectares, horsepower per hectare. The African average is 1.7 horsepower per hectare. So we're not even there. But like you can see, the government is working on many mechanization in the program. For example, we have the Green Imperative, we have the Greener Hope Initiative, and we also have the agreement we just signed with John Deere of the United States to provide 2,000 tractors every year over the next 5 years. That's 10,000. And like you can see, subnationals are trying their best, and former Governor Umar Mohamed Bago of Niger State has just shown the way to go. He has an agreement to have 1,000 tractors, of which 300 has already arrived, which was launched just recently by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
And Jigawa too.
And Jigawa, in terms of wheat, for example, Jigawa provided about 55,000 hectares of that 118 I talked about. Actually, their target we gave them is 40. But with their own internal effort, they were able to go up to 55,000 hectares. So I would say that, yes, it's easy for people to make those kind of comments. But we have promised renewed hope for security. And we have just started. And I want to assure you, they will not know when they forget about anything called hunger. Because President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is very, very, very sincere and very frank about it. He has charged myself and my brother, Senator Abubakar Kyari, and we are working day and night to make sure that we meet this target. And I want to tell you, there is hope in the horizon.
Well, there's hope, and Inyari has said that it's renewed hope hunger, and there's no policy that comes in isolation. I'm sure before this policy came out, there have been studies, from the largest food producing countries in the world, like China, India, and the United States, who have for long put in place best practices in agric and food production. Now, how have you been able to learn from their policies there, and how are you going to implement these policies they have in their country into our local environment to ensure that Nigeria is food secured?
Well, you have come back to the point I've made.
Yes.
You know, there is two issues here. The immediate crisis at hand has to be solved. That is the current food inflation crisis, which is a product of so many other policy challenges and imbalances that is impacting on the agricultural sector.
What kind of imbalances?
Because it's one thing, for example, you have food. It's one thing, it is affordable. It's one thing you have food. It's one thing it is accessible. So when you talk about food security, it has to be available, it has to be affordable, it has to be accessible, and it must be in the right nutritional content on a day-by-day basis for your citizens. And if you have to achieve this, then there are quite a number of things that has to be done. And that is one of the things I told you. First, we have low mechanization. If you look at our productivity is low. Some countries, for example, the wheat we're talking about, we are targeting from 4, 5, 6 tons, depending on the capacity and the knowledge base of the farmers. They'll be able to have up to that per hectare. But there are countries that are already having 9, 10 tons per hectare.
So what are you doing as regards mechanization? You know, because I was actually at one forum.
That is the point
I was at a forum where, you know, someone mentioned that because of the low mechanization in the country, you know, the Ministry of Agriculture should be termed the Ministry of Farming, because, you know, simple implements are used instead of, you know, using technology, using, you know, farm machineries that can boost production and all of that. And you're talking about, okay, it's still low at the moment, but what are you doing in that regard, you know, to ensure that, you know, we increase the scale of our mechanized farming, not just in importing machines. What are we doing to
making sure it works?
Well, the issue is simple. You see, when you say mechanization, what are you talking about? Using machineries, isn't it? To aid your production, land clearing, okay, planting, weeding, chemical application, and the like. Now, what I will tell you here is that because this has been the situation we met on ground, what are the plans? The plans, like I said earlier, is that government is working on 3 key mechanization programs. The greener, that is Green Imperative program, the Greener Hope initiative, and then the agreement we have signed already with, you know, John Deere. Now, this will entails having not just the equipment, but having service centers across the 774 local government areas. Because from what you have said about the experience should be the lessons we have learned about the mistake we have created as a country. We are, even in the past, when tractors are imported, there is no technical backstopping system. Now, in these programs I'm talking about, service centers will be created where young agricultural graduates or other experts will be trained in both maintenance, utilization, and effective application of these tractors, such that we know, based on the cost, a farmer who is having 1 hectare does not need to have a tractor. What he needs is a service whereby the various implements that one tractor can use, in terms of the ridgers, in terms of the harvesters, in terms of the planters, all of them will be available, and even chemical application. So all of these things, we realize a farmer has to be supported with them. And right now, even in the programs we are dealing with, we are also talking about irrigation, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, in this last program we have done, support had to be given for irrigation facilities. And let's take note also that it's not just the federal government, the state governments also, this time around, because of the confidence and trust the governors have in the decision of the president to focus on food security, you can see various state governments are coming up with robust programs that we've never seen before. The Kebbi State Governor has bought more than 7,000 irrigation, that is solar powered irrigation pumps to support their farmers. So these are the things we're talking about, because when you do that, then you are helping farmers to have less drudgery while enhancing the efficiency of their operations.
All right, many
Okay,
thanks,
my question I would like to ask is, you talk about training those who maintain the machineries, but we all know in Nigeria when these machineries are bought, it's people who will not have any hand in, coupling or, doing anything with these mechanized machines. Usually they go, they buy it, and who trains these people who are going to work with these machines? Is it not supposed to be in a way that these people go all the way to, is it to China, you bought it, and be trained there on site so that they understand, and the parts of these mechanized machines, because we've seen so many laying around like one big elephant project over the years, because people have said, we've talked of policy on agriculture, policy on food security, from the Green Revolution to feed the nation and all that, but the problem is along the way the vision is lost. And people come in and say, what we meant on ground, what we meant on ground. Why can't we work on what we met on ground to make sure that this policy sees the light of day and don't just lie down there on the table, and it goes beyond the table. Implementation is key in this country, don't you think?
I want to tell you that not just implementation, execution is the power. And here I want to tell you we are ready to execute to the latter. Now, you see, I was smiling because this time around, we are not following the old path to failure. We are following the new path to renewed hope. And that new path is the fact that it is now going to be government-enabled, private sector-driven. That's exactly what we're driving at now. All the programs, mechanization programs I've told you about, it's not just about, oh, you bring it to government and then some government officials will know. It's about creating the enabling policy for the private sector who knows how these things are done to come and drive it. The one you saw with former Governor Umar Bago is also Niger State enabled, but private sector driven. And he has talked about all the companies that he has signed agreements with. That of the Green Imperative, the Greener Hope, all of these programs, John Deere, all of them are going to be the ones to lead the implementation and the execution. And that means they are the ones on the driver's seat. And I will tell you, it is happening right here in this country. That of John Deere, they have an agreement with Tata Africa that have a site in the Lekki Free Zone. That tells you how serious this issue is. The facility is there. So in terms of training, it is the private sector that will be training these people, following a model of what? Profitability, which is what the government is trying to help the private sectors to achieve. But of course, economy of scale is what brings profitability and a win-win situation for even the off-takers. That is what government is trying to do.
Right,
so whatever constraint that the private sector is going to bring to the table, government, through the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is more than committed to remove. In fact, in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, right now we are working to create an enabling framework on ease of doing agriculture in Nigeria. That is one of the projects we're going to have this year. We want to see the pain points of Nigerian farmers and all the value chain actors, so that at the end of the day, we will be addressing those pain points one after the other. That way we can encourage people who have invested massively in the agricultural sector to make the most out of their investment.
Thank you so much, Honorable Abdullahi. We'll have to pause you there and go to our guest in Kaduna. Of course, we'll come back to you with more questions. I'm sure that Murtala Dabo is ready for us, the Commissioner for Agriculture, Kaduna State. I'm sure you've been following the conversation, you've been listening to the Minister. I'd like to ask you specifically, what is Kaduna State government doing to ensure food security? Could you tell us the steps that have been taken so far and what the impact has been?
Well, good morning, viewers, once again. I want to say that the government of Senator Obasani is very much on top of the game. And, agriculture is one of the key pillars of his sustained agenda, which perfectly aligns with President Tinubu's renewed hope agenda. And, agriculture is a very critical sector where, the president has declared state of emergency, and Kaduna is an agrarian state. As we are, we produce more than 25% of the maize in this country. So we're at the grains hub here. And being an agrarian state, you can see even from 2024 budget, because of its commitment to agriculture, our budget has been up by over 1,000% compared to 2023 provision. So the Sustain agenda has very, very key emphasis on agriculture. And we are starting with majorly our smallholder farmers, because agriculture provides more than 43%, contributes more than 43% to the state's GDP. And what we realize is that the yield of average smallholder farmers is quite low. So we're starting with that. There was a yield improvement program where we're focusing on giving access to quality inputs. You know, so many things add up to improve the productivity. They lack access to quality seeds. A lot of our smallholder farmers just plant grains. So now we are ramping up to subsidize all inputs such that they will have access to quality seeds and all the inputs through. Perhaps mechanization, which the Honorable Minister has just said, and truly the effort they are making is something that is very, very critical. And as a state too, we are moving in that direction. Even today, the governor of the state, Senator Obasani, is going to distribute a lot of agri equipment this afternoon. At least maybe the micro mechanization, a lot of power tillers, which is more accessible or more affordable to the smallholder farmers. They are the ones we are starting with along all our cooperatives. And truly, you know, apart from the yield improvement that we are working on, we want to see that where we have 1.5 to 2 tons of maize per hectare to the average smallholder farmers, we are working to achieve at least 5 tons. How are we going to achieve this? We have already profiled our farmers. We will give them quality inputs and perhaps extension, which is another critical area that is, will I say, lacking a lot of gap, because most of the extension workers have aged and they are all retiring. So we are ramping up to even recruit a lot more extension workers so that there will be good agronomic practice. It's not enough for you to give the farmer good inputs. You must teach them agronomic practice so that at the end of the day, the yield and the productivity will be enhanced. So there are so many areas we're working on. Mechanization is one, inputs, and perhaps, again, rain-fed agriculture is not enough. Yes, we give 25% of the maize to the country. The Kellogg's of this world, the FX of this world, most of them, they get more than 50% of their produce from the state. So what are we? We have over 49,000 square kilometers. We're working to attract a lot of private sector players that will do the commercial farming here. So definitely the state is committed and the governor is he's pushing so hard on the area of agriculture, because it is what provides the livelihood of generality of the state citizens, and is keen into the federal government's renewed hope agenda of sustaining, ensuring food security.
Okay, Mr. Murtala Dabo, it's a good thing to know that states are keen into the renewed hope agenda, on food security by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And we all know Kaduna is one of the highest producers of food, and also something like ginger. And it seems like ginger production in Kaduna has been facing some challenges now, because we all know how much it has contributed to the GDP in this country through exports. So what's happening and what is the situation now?
Kaduna is the hub of ginger. As it is, we produce more than 80% of the ginger that comes from this country. And Nigerian ginger is the most pungent, is well sought after. So unfortunately, the past season has been very rough for the ginger farmers because of the fungal attack. and more than 80% of the whatever had melted as a result of the fungal attack. But we escalated this issue. The state government, bought some fungicides, but by the time we distributed it, it was already too late. And we are now working with the federal government, especially the Office of the Federal Minister of Agriculture has been pushing, and Office of the Vice President is driving the process. And, tests have been conducted. Research institutes are already in a committee that is bringing up the solutions by way of, the treatment to the soil, and perhaps to get clean seeds. Unfortunately, this coming season, it's a bad case. The research institutes are saying that the tissue culture that will bring up clean seeds will take up to a year or even more. So we'll just make do with what is available right now. But the government is working so hard to support the farmers because their livelihoods are being wiped out completely. And the committee that the Office of the Vice President is driving with the Federal Minister of Agri and some of us, the producing states, is working round the clock. And I think we're about to launch the intervention support to the farmers because their livelihoods that has been threatened and wiped out, that a lot of support is coming in. And as a state, we are also working with other private sector partners to see how we will source seeds so that we'll at least salvage, because ginger is one of the major non-oil exports, and with the currency crisis that we have in the country, is a source that is lost for this season. So the government, and through Nigeria Export Promotion Council too, is working very hard to see that we turn back, because as we are talking now, a bag of ginger, you will not believe, is going for more than 200,000. It's not even available. So we're working very hard to see that we restart. While federal government is supporting, we are liaising with the farmers, assuring them, giving them all the support, so that they will even do other crops for this coming season. For ginger, I'm sure this coming season is going to be very, very low because the seeds are not even available. Clean seeds. But the beauty of it is that the committee is on top of its game. They've identified the fungi, and all the interventions recommended are there. So we are only working and hoping to see that we achieve, so that we have a turnaround, and ginger should come back very, very fast to the table. We really cannot afford to miss this major crop. It's a major FX earner to this country. And the farmers are working very hard. They are waiting anxiously for all the support that will come from the federal government. And as a state, we are also doing our best efforts. And we sincerely appreciate the efforts of Ministry of Agriculture in this area to see that they bring succor and relief to our farmers in the state. Honorable Minister, we truly appreciate your effort.
Mr. Dabo, for your response to that question. We'll definitely come back to you. Let's get to Professor Abolade Oyerinde right here in the studio. You are in the academia, and I also understand that you do, small-scale farming at your level. Of course, everybody's a farmer these days. Whether you're planting vegetables in your backyard or and all of that. Okay, but I want to find out from you, Professor Oyerinde. You understand, the agricultural setting in this country, by virtue of your knowledge, and then the fact that you are a farmer yourself, and the issues in the agricultural sector. Please, could you speak to us about, some of the challenges that you think is hindering food production in the country? And talking about challenges, could you also speak about policies of government that has not really favored small-scale farmers? Because from what we know, we have more small-scale farmers in this country than those who are into it big time.
It's a privilege being on set with the minister, and we always like talking about Nigerian agriculture and food production. The basic thing is the renewed hope agenda of the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I think even before the election, the APC Professional Forum had an event that I was part of the people that anchored the program. So And if you read the manifesto of the president, you see that the agric is one of the cardinal on his agenda. So, if we go down memory lane, we'll see that traditionally, Africa has 1/3 of the global arable land. So, by destiny, we're supposed to be feeding the world. But the people that we are claiming that are producing now, the China, the Indian, and a host of others, doesn't have the kind of resources that we have. They don't have quality soil that we have. They do extra. I remember when I was in Galilee Institute for a training. If you see the way they are tendering, they are taking care of their crops, you know that God is a Nigerian. Because when you finish eating your mango and you throw it away, it will start growing and will start producing for you. It means that we have an ambient of quality environment that can support our agricultural production. What we need is enabling environment. And the Honorable Minister has said the best that can happen to us. Agric is a business. And until when we understand that agriculture is a business, we'll continue wallowing and keep claiming that we now have foodflation, we now have hunger. When we are not as educated as this, we have the groundnut pyramid, we have cocoa, we have rubber, we have that dominate and constitute largely close to 70% of our GDP. So the renewed hope taking us back now to our basis is more or less like reminding us of who we are so that we all go back to farm. The challenges we are having is because there has been lip service as regards agriculture. I would like to put an input to the Kaduna case because it's not only Kaduna that had that experience. Some time ago, Kogi State, about 9 years ago, have that same challenge when they cultivated 500,000 hectares of rice. And rice blast came up and wiped it up. One of my friends happened to be the commissioner then, so we met in one of the GIZ program. When he was complaining, I said, sir, you can't complain because the factor is that you did not factor in pest and disease management when you are doing your budget for your production. And he agreed. He agreed that sincerely they believe that people have been producing that same crop and is doing well. So they did. I said, no, pests and diseases, weather factor, usually synchronize their life to the crop you are producing. They will need it as food too, as we need it. So it's competitive. It's more or less like all of us are just getting. So when they've been producing ginger and having massive wealth within Kaduna State, they've never thought that there will be one microorganism, very tiny, very small, that will come and wipe off the ginger. So, and that is not only ginger, most of our agricultural value chain has the same problem. Is that an issue? When the minister said they've released fertilizer, I'm very happy because I know sometime I was here and I said in Imo State, the fertilizer was released around August that year. And I said, what would they use fertilizer to do in August when the rain is going? So the fact remains that the Renew Hope agenda, they are on the trajectory of having food on our table. The cost of food now, which we call the food inflation, is normal. It's the quality of what we call demand and supply. So in demand and supply, when you don't have enough, the price will go up. And most of us left our traditional activity, which is farming. We kept running after white collar job or green collar job or any collar job that is not available. From vegetable farming, using hydroponic at your backyard, urban farming, you're supposed to be producing enough vegetable for your community. And with that, the price will surely come down. So the fact remains that we are not encouraging God for what he has given to us as a resources. We have the technical know-how. We have the human resources. We have the both. One time I was speaking in one AUDA NEPAD program, and I told them, I remember at that fora, it's an African fora, and I said, we have the blue economy and we have the green economy. The people on the team say, which one is blue economy again? President Bola Tinubu have identified that. That's why he's now having a ministry of blue economy. Because the resources we have on in the water, we have not even tapped them. All over. We have rivers all over Nigeria, apart from the ocean. So the fact remains that we are now rejuvenating, rekindling who we are. Nearly all of us inherited farming in our family. So going back to the basis now, is that the quality of the challenges we are facing is, you are talking about mechanization. And most of the time when people talk about mechanization, what people think is gigantic equipment. That's not mechanization. Big structure. That's not mechanization. Mechanization is how do you ease your production using small tool to aid the production and make it so that you remove the laboriousness, and that is what will make the younger generation to come into agriculture. No, one time I remember I was here with the AFAN president one time that I said, how will you do a textbook of agriculture? And you are now putting a picture that has cutlass and on the front page.
I remember that conversation.
Yes, no young child will want to go into agriculture.
But Prof, you're saying that because we neglected farming. I remember that the previous administration tried to, center focus on agriculture, and he, there was this drive, for people to go back to the farms. I remember that we started rice farming, was boosted in the previous administration, and the rest. But at the moment, we're not getting the gains of that. Why is that?
Okay. What we're supposed to realize is that, when I said is highly competitive, the same rice we are eating in Nigeria, and indirectly, Nigeria feed West Africa and some Central Africa, indirectly. When the government opened the border, I think 2 days ago, for Niger, so that we can have the routes, so that there can be trans-boundary routes. You see how happy they are in Niger. If you go to Cameroon, if you go to our neighbor, Chad and a host of others, they rely so much on our production in Nigeria. But unofficially, some people don't count that. If you go to markets in Kano like Maradi and a host of others, you see people coming in to pick this. One time, I raised this issue, that where we even have foreigners going to our farms to go and buy the farm, not buying the products. They will buy like the ginger on the field, yam on the field, and they will now be the one that will be responsible to harvest it. That is so bad for us as a nation. There's no country that you allow foreigner to come and take your assets and export. I was cracking a joke with one of my friends yesterday that one of my friends that came from South Africa was to go and pick some of the seeds here, left with it. I said when I was in Israel, after the training, some of the pepper seeds that I took, put in an envelope. Immediately I got to the exit. They said, no, you cannot take this away. You have to sign an agreement. Go back to your country, write to us, so that we can have collaboration. We are not saying we are not giving it to you, but there must be collaboration. So when you look at who we are and what we are doing, it's all about, do we love the country? Do we believe in this country? What we have, if we put just little effort, we will be the one that will champion feeding the whole of West Africa. So the mechanization that we are talking about, we have income in Ilorin, that the National Center for Agric Mechanization. There are so many prototypes, but do we develop it? Most of the tractors we are bringing in now, there should be indigenization of those tractors. Because where they did all those tractors, their parameters will be different from the parameters, the soil texture, soil moisture, and a host of other things like that. That will be responsible. What the size of our seed, those things must be factored into production of the mechanization. So, the commissioner spoke about extension services. Last 2 weeks, there's a group that is working on having an act, a bill that they want to submit to the Senate on extension services and how do we reform it in Nigeria. I participated in the last 3 meetings, and I believe that the best we can do is to take the best practice of agriculture, not farming. There's a difference between agriculture and farming. Immediately you are talking about farming, your mind will go back to Cutlass and oh, we have smart farming, we have, what do we call it? We have smart farming, which means you use IT. We have precision farming. All these are being engaged in Nigeria. Now, it's not strange to us. We have organic farming. People have started doing this, and it's changing the climate. Most of the vegetables you buy from our malls now have been produced in Nigeria.
In Nigeria, yes.
So, it's a plus for us. It means we are moving forward. But the other question you ask, that we have productivity of rice, we have this, is not, Rome was not built in a day. Immediately, this present government live on the existing plus, the positive aspect that the other government, you know, the best with APC government is that they don't abandon projects. Most of the projects that they inherited, they completed. If we go within that line, and this present Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security focus on identifying what are the gaps from the implementation of the previous government, I believe that we'll surely get there.
Yes, we'll surely get there, Prof. And I'm sure the minister is listening to everything you've been saying. Let me bring you in. Prof has said we have the land, we have the population, we have the know-how to make sure that this policy works. But one aspect that we've not addressed since we started this conversation is the security challenge. Most farmers are off their farms. They can't go and farm on this land. And how can we achieve food security if farmers don't farm?
Well, thank you very much. Like you rightly pointed out, yes, we have security challenge. But at the same time also, I will say that government is doing its best in resolving this security challenge. It's not going to happen overnight, but definitely President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is totally committed to making sure that he does his best to give every component part of this country the security they so much deserve. Now, what we have noticed is that, like I said, we realize we cannot do this job alone. So one of the key, critical success factors we are bringing on board is working very strongly with the subnationals, more than we've ever done before. And the subnationals had confidence in the way we are driving and approaching the subject matter. And that explains why you will have heard from the news, many of the state governors have visited us in the ministry to lend their support and to give us confidence that yes, we want to work together. Now, in working together, it means they also realize that their state has to have the space where this farming activity has to take place. And in their own different efforts, they are working together with the federal government through the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to ensure that the right thing is done. There is also the National Economic Council that is being chaired by the Vice President, Senator Kashim Shettima, and the governors. They've also been having meetings. All of these issues are being discussed. The ministry sits in that meeting and briefs are being provided. The minister goes for that meeting most times and briefs about what we are doing and areas where we need them to support is happening. In terms of security. So you can see there is a handshake, unlike before where everybody was just doing his own thing. So that is happening. Now for us also, we are exploring other windows. Now, one of the windows we've started exploring this year is the fact that we asked ourselves, we have research institutes, we have colleges of agriculture, we have universities of agriculture, the regular universities. All of them are sitting on massive lands that are secure. So what do? We are talking to them, and we started collecting the data to see what can we do to exploit that. That is one. Two, you also remember that those days we used to have school farms.
Yes.
What happened to these school farms? The old schools, many schools are also sitting, secondary schools, federal government colleges are sitting on land areas where certain activities can take place. We are also looking at all of these areas. The essence is, what can we do to maximize available space to make sure that we are able to produce, to complement that areas that have been lost due to insecurity. And we also are looking at increasing productivity. And I think both two speakers, the Commissioner of Agriculture and Prof, have talked about how you can increase productivity. You have to ensure there's quality seed. So the National Seed Council is being re-engineered to make sure that if you go to every village, you know, we have seed companies, but the seed companies cannot meet the total seed demand. So one of the things we have said is that, okay, if you go to every village, if you want to farm, if you ask the villagers, where will I get seed? They will tell you, go to so-so person. Don't go to so-so person because this person provides good seed. That is local capacity. That is local knowledge. What are we going to do about it? There is a study conducted by the National Seed Council with some partners, and it was realized that 75% of our seed requirements are being met by these local seed owners. So we now ask them, develop a program where you can systematically increase the capacity of these local farmers to be able to provide quality seed under your technical guidance to increase the availability of seed, not grains, being used by farmers. So this is also one side of it. The other aspect is, the extension he talked about. Now, for the wheat program, what we did was to bring extension, officers across the entire production site. They were trained. There was training and retraining done in NERLS Zaria, and that they took back to ensure that everybody is doing his own bit. And for extension, it's one thing you have the officer, but it's another thing you get in to move around farmers. So one of the things we are looking at here is, how do you get them solar powered or electric machines?
Using technology here.
Yes, using technology. Now the other aspect also is that to extend, since we are having, just like he has pointed out, low number of extension personnel over the years, what we are introducing is to introduce electronic e-extension services. That is also another area where
so they don't have to move
so
around.
that we can create a platform, a digital platform, that we provide this knowledge that are also translated into the major languages for farmers to have access to. Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo, and other languages depending on the kind of commodity. That way, knowledge will be available. Because if you look at the impact of smartphones today, most villagers, they have this. So if you can tap on that, you also increase the availability of knowledge that is made available. Now, you said Prof is an entomologist, and I was excited about that because he also understands the impact of pests and diseases on reducing the productivity of farmers' efforts. Now, what do you do to that? You have to train farmers to be able to identify the early signs of impending pest and disease control. You cannot do this if you are not tapping into the digital, technology. So that with that, they can see pictorials. The moment they begin to see this, then they will be able to take advantage. In fact, technology is being so enabled today that farmers can actually even snap the picture, and you can create a platform where by snapping the picture, it will tell them that, oh, it is this kind of problems you are having. All of these things, we are taking that in tune, and we realize that the youth, who are the future, the average youth age of Nigeria today is 19, which means our country is a youth country. So you must create that enabling environment for youth to take the mantle to take the leadership in all of these production efforts. And in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, there is an engagement this year that we're going to have with Nigerian youths to begin to identify areas where they can be supported to drive the agricultural transformation that the Renewed Hope agenda is expecting. And in doing that, the President has already directed the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, along with the Ministry of Communication, Innovation and Digital Economy, to work out how all of these things are going to happen.
All right, thank you, Honorable Abdullahi. Before becoming the Minister of Agriculture, I'm sure you've been in farming or agriculture?
I spent 20 years in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security.
No wonder.
Where I was in the ministry for 10 years, in the Agricultural Research Council.
Before you joined politics?
Before joining politics in 2014.
So you understand what we're talking about. But I have a question for you, but that'll be after the break. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. It's still Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA, and our guests are still very much with us. And we're talking about food production, how we could improve food production in the country. Before we went on that break, the Honorable Minister of State for Agriculture and Food Security, Senator Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi, was giving us in details what happens in the Ministry of Agriculture and what we can do to boost food production. But I'd like to ask you, because you understand the ministry, I'm sure you also understand that we have political farmers in the country. And if you like, these are the people that have sabotaged the efforts of government for so many years. Whenever there are policies, there are interventions for farmers, they hijack it. And, it doesn't trickle down to the farmers who actually do the work, who are in the business of producing food for this country. What is this government doing differently, just so that we can take out the weeds from the real farmers?
Well, thank you very much. One thing I can say for sure is that the political will of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to transform the Nigerian agriculture is a game changer. And he has empowered us as a ministry to do all things and everything so that we can achieve the Renewed Hope agenda for that sector. Now, when we came on board, we've actually amplified this subject. You see, there are things that if you don't talk about, people don't appreciate. And I'm happy that you are asking this question, because we have already identified that as a major constraint, and we have said it in different fora that we want to weed out the political farmers, the portfolio farmers, those fake farmers who will come in and tell you I have 1,000, 10,000, 15,000 hectares of land, and they don't even know the road to farm. So what we are doing this time around is to go back to the basics. In working with the state governments, we've told them clearly we are interested in only farmers that have farms. That we have started with the wheat farming program, and we've achieved some success. Now, in that also, we are able to see those who are lying. The moment you understand that this person is a bad egg, you know how to isolate that person going forward. That we have already started. But beyond that, we are bringing in technology. This year, we are starting along with partners. The Office of the Vice President has taken interest in this, and we have a program with other partners that we're going to bring on board, so that at the end of the day, we can have at a single click a knowledge of where our farms are located. Who are these farmers? And these farmers are now being mapped. They are now being mapped and georeferenced to their farms using even their BVN. And I will tell you for a fact that Jigawa State has already provided this leadership. In that last program, all the 40,000 hectares that we give them, including the ones they have already called it, they already have all of this data. Now, because we've encouraged this to happen, and that when they do, they should also go back and have a clearing mechanism where they can clean this data. Kaduna State, in doing that, came and gave us their feedback that as a result of this encouragement to do this, some of the farmers gave them georeference to farms, and by the time they check, it fell on a major highway in Kaduna. So that tells you that we are now aware. And in the review of the wheat farming, after all was done, we had a review. And in that review, it was a 3 days program or thereabout, and it held here in Abuja. And during the closing ceremony, the Honorable Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edu, the Minister of Budget and National Planning, Senator Abubakar Bagudu, the Honorable Minister, Abubakar Kyari, myself, we were all there. And they all acknowledged that they want to work with us to remove all those portfolio farmers out of their operations. Because like we said, it's going to be our own total gain, all of us, if the sector is vibrant and productive, other than exploiting the system, because one day you exploit it and you will not be able to have to exploit it. Like a saying goes in my place, the health of the bird lies in the health of the tree. If the agricultural sector is not healthy, all the operators, the agro dealers, the farmers and all value chain actors, they will collapse. And I think that realization has now been scored, and we are working together to make sure no more portfolio farmers, no more fake farmers, no more, what do they call it, shunting of the system, so that at the end of the day, when we say we are having the 118,000 hectares, it should be 118,000 hectares. And we should be able to have certainty to what we are producing. That way, the system can grow. That way, prosperity can be spread across the land.
Yeah, before we go to Kaduna now, I would like to bring up something. The Prof talked about colleges of education, universities. Colleges of Agric, University of Agric, and all that, all existing, and our advantage in this country is our youth population.
Yeah.
So, and information needs to come from a point of knowledge.
Yeah.
Some of these students go to this school because I couldn't get into maybe UI or University of Maiduguri. I just got this. How do we work on the interest of the younger generation? Capture them young and ensure that they contribute to the growth of food security in this country. Do you do?
Thank you very much. You see, for the youth today, they are digital, they are up and mobile. And so you have to tap into the space where they operate and what they understand, the language they understand. And as a ministry, this year in our project, we have a hackathon where we want to bring all Nigerian youths to tell us areas where we need to engage in, because they understand this language better. Artificial intelligence is now the norm. Many Nigerian youths are doing wonders in these particular areas, and we will give them that platform to look at solutions they can bring towards solving the low productivity of our farms. And I believe when we do that, we'll be able to get them to think. Now, secondly, we also believe that the current curriculum is not addressing the realities of today's agriculture. And so the ministry, we partner with the Federal Ministry of Federal Ministry of Education. That is also in our budget this year, so that we'll be able to look at a review of the current curriculums. And I'm happy one of the deans are here. They have a system. There are a committee of deans of Nigeria, faculties of agriculture. We have the universities of agriculture. We should be able to come up with curriculum that is so practical, that is hands-on. And in the area of providing infrastructure and superstructure for these faculties, it should come down to the reality of farming today in Nigeria. That way, when a student gets into the university or the College of Agriculture, what he's seeing practically is already giving him the impetus to continue on that trajectory when he goes out, so that he can apply the knowledge he has earned to increasing his productivity. And the beauty also is that there are many Nigerian youths that are already taking the agricultural landscape by storm by introducing this technology of hydroponics and all other precision agriculture and smart agriculture, like Prof talked about earlier, to change the narratives that, look, you can come in and do something different, make money, and be prosperous.
All right,
and I think that hope is there for Nigeria.
All right,
so the renewed hope agenda too.
We have hope, Honorable Abdullahi. Professor Oyerinde, I'd like to come to you. I've been corrected that... Yeah, we'll go to Kaduna, but I've been corrected that you're a big-time farmer. And so, from your perspective as a big-time farmer and also professor of agriculture, I want you to speak to climate change and some of the adaptation strategies that we can, take as a nation, just so that that does not also become a challenge? We're talking about mechanization and some other factors, political farmers, portfolio farmers, and all of that. But climate change is here, and we know that it's going to affect agriculture seriously in the coming years. What are the strategies you think we can take so we can stay afloat?
Okay. The Honorable Minister raised the issue of IT with agriculture. I remember in 2019 when I wrote a book on application of computer in agricultural production. It's tied to essential of computer in agricultural production. People from computer science, most of them came to me that, where did you learn this? And when I introduced that to our students, it changed the dynamics about their orientation about agriculture. Because it has recent things, use of drone, precision farming, precision agriculture, as well as that. Unfortunately, I'm a United Nations climate advocate too. I was in COP22, sponsored by United Nations, based on some of my papers on climate change. The way to go is climate smart agriculture. And if we cannot do that, it means we will not be able to talk in line, in tune with the recent happenings in the world now. So the climate change is not new. It's not new, and most of our parties can ameliorate the problem of climate change. So the essence and the major thing is to get aware of what you call, there's a dynamics of change in temperature, change in rainfall pattern, and you synchronize your production to that. NIMET usually give forecast at the beginning of the year. So these are information that the extension services take around. You should expect early rain, or you expect late rain, or you do close season farming, or you do early cropping. All those things are available. But the practicability of it is that some people need to guide the farmer to do it. So the word climate smart agriculture is not a big word. What it's saying is that you adapt your agricultural practice to the environmental condition of where you are. So the talk we've been having since morning, we exempted the livestock.
Also part of agriculture.
Livestock. I remember I had one argument with people that how will Fulani not go and graze on your crop when you did not provide food for them? When the federal government said, give us land to do pasture, you said, no, land is not available in my state. Within their own livestock economy, they must feed their animal. So we should, wherever it's happening that you see harmony between the livestock farmer and the crop farmer, is because the two of them understand. Because the livestock need the remnant of the crop to feed the animal. But we abandon them.
And also produce manure for the farms.
Sorry, please. I know you want to go back to Kaduna, but thank you very much for bringing this. Actually, I was hoping that I will have an opportunity to also talk on that. Because there is definitely an ongoing effort by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to look at transforming the entire livestock sector. And a report was submitted to him by Governor Ganduje, which effort he made sometimes in the past, and that is receiving attention. But suffice it to say that even at the ministry level, the idea of what he has said is that livestock need feed and fodder. And the animal husbandry department is taking this very seriously. What we are trying to do now is to raise that level of farming to the level that you can have people whose own preoccupation will be providing specifically feed and fodder that is targeting the livestock sector. If you look at the livestock sector, for example, poultry, they need maize. So we should have farmers who are producing specifically animal grade maize so that that sector can get its own, because there's competition between livestock and humans for maize consumption, for example. Then the idea of fodder. There are areas where they can plant these fodders. And I think the department has identified, certain particular, varieties of fodder that can do very well, that you can plant, package them, and then even get them into the market so that livestock owners can begin to. So we need to organize the livestock sector. The idea behind even the free range and whatnot, even the Fulanis are also agreeing that it is time for them to change. But to change, they will require government support. And I think that is why the president is taking this very, very seriously. And in no time, you definitely hear from government what is going to happen in that
We'll be expecting to hear from that and from the government on that. And let's bring in Murtala Dabo, Commissioner for Agriculture, Kaduna State. We know we've talked about mechanized farming and all that, and of course climate change, which is affecting the output of agricultural produce. And the Prof has also talked about climate smart agriculture. When we talk about climate change, maybe that is what must happen to ginger in Kaduna State. So how will you be applying climate smart agriculture to the production of ginger and of course reduce the use of pesticides on our ginger? We need to encourage the ginger production so that it can enhance our GDP in the area of agriculture. What do you think?
Our governor, distinguished Senator Obasani, that has approved a provision in our 2024 budget for specifically quality control and innovation in the ministry. This will help us to use technology to even be able to detect some of these diseases ahead of time. Like the ginger fungal attack came, it took up to 3 months for us to even know it was really a fungal attack. The initial impression was that it was just because the rain ceased for 2 weeks, and after application of fertilizer, the crop wilted. Without knowing that it's an attack, that the more the rain came, it spread, and before you knew it, it was beyond our control. So we are working on that. We are going to ramp up that new unit such that we'll be applying technology to be able to detect some of these diseases way ahead of time. Then I want to speak on another major effort that the governor is working on to really help food security. You see, the emphasis on rain-fed agriculture is it won't just take us anywhere. All year round farming is one key pillar, key thing that we are driving as a ministry. Even last week, we visited new corridors where we want to open, where we have large water bodies. We want to partner with private sector to create a large portion of irrigated land. Our farmers have the ability to give us a lot more. But you know, they need to be supported. Without the irrigation infrastructure, we'll only be relying on the rainy season, which is not enough. So that's one area really the state government is working very hard. We are going to revitalize our decaying irrigation infrastructure and perhaps build new corridors. And our governor is also, their trip to Qatar, you know, we are aggressively working with private sector. They have already agreed with Stallion. Stallion is coming to cultivate 100,000 hectares of rice. You know, for us to achieve food security, we must, after liaising and supporting the smallholder farmers, we must work with the large commercial farmers. Honorable Minister, I know the ministry, your ministry is driving this. It's an area that really we need to focus on, because the result will be a lot more. We'll achieve it a lot faster because we have the commercial farmers. Someone can have the capacity to cultivate 50 hectares. Another one can do 100 hectares. While you take so much time supporting the smallholder farmers with modest or little effort with the commercial farmers, it will ramp up productivity seriously, and that will help us to address the food security issue. And on the area of livestock, this is another area that Kaduna, you know, is the hub of milk, or what do you call it, dairy. We are partnering with Allah from Denmark. The Amau household company is one area where they are bringing in their quality. I mean, their own species, where a cow will produce 40 liters in a day, as against what our local farmer, our local herders get just 1 to 2 liters maximum. And that is a partnership that really will help. We are investing so much money. Their demonstration farm is already working, giving us results. And we are also ramping up our own part, such that we want to sedentarize the herders in a place, give them accommodation, build schools, and all facilities, so that, and a large expanse of land for the pasture. And as the Honorable Minister rightly observed, pasture is one area that will create a lot of jobs. A lot of these headers, even without cows, they will be earning foreign exchange with the further issue. We have partners calling us that they want to be coming to get the pasture from here. So it's an area that we are aggressively working to improve the livestock productivity too.
Mr. Murtala Dabo, for your comments there, beautiful. Of course, we're looking forward to seeing some of these plans come to fruition and having the Nigerian population benefit massively from it. Food production, of course, if improved, would better our lot as a nation. Honorable Adelaide, your last words, sir, because of time, we need to wrap up the conversation. Your last words as we go.
Let me say this. I want to say to Nigerians that myself and Senator Abubakar Kyari will understand the magnitude of expectations based on the caliber of leadership President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is providing. The Renewed Hope agenda, like you said, I could hear in your early openings, you were talking about people saying renewed hope, or is it renewed hunger? Well, I understand, and Nigerians should be patient with us. What we are saying here is that we are not performing magic, but we are working, and we are working very hard with a clear focus to succeed. And we believe all we just need to do is to bring back all the critical stakeholders. And to do that, April, God willing, we are convening a National Food Security Summit, Agriculture and Food Security Summit, to bring all critical stakeholders so that we can again together review where we are, why we are where we are, where we want to go, how we want to go, and how everybody as a critical stakeholder will contribute to taking us to that direction. That is on the offing, and I want to say that this same year we have a number of programs in our budget that we are doing to create that foundation, because beyond anything we want to lay a solid foundation for a sustainable food transformation system in Nigeria. And you know, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is known for one thing: he leaves lasting legacies. That is what we are working on, so that the agricultural sector will be on a trajectory of transformation, never to reverse back again, by the special grace of God.
Indeed, Honorable Minister, what you're saying is everybody must be on board the Renewed Hope agenda on food production. I am a farmer already.
Let's know your farm, and then we geo-reference and geo-map you to your farm, and then that way we can provide support.
Okay, thank you, Senator.
You will not link my farm to a major highway or a filling station.
Well, Senator Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi, as usual, Honorable Minister of State for Agriculture and Food Security, as usual, it's been a pleasure having you to give us your insight, not from the National Assembly this time around, but as a stakeholder in government. Thank you so much for your contribution. Professor Akim Abolade Oyerinde, the Dean, Faculty of Agriculture, University of Abuja, Fellow and National Secretary, Entomological Society of Nigeria. It's been a pleasure as always.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
And Murtala Dabo, Commissioner for Agriculture, Kaduna State, we appreciate your contribution to the program. Thank you so much. We appreciate today. See us tomorrow for another edition of the program. I am Jumma Yusuf.
And I'm Yenwe John. Please remain tuned to the NTA. Bye for now.